Welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about the presidential election in Brazil. Two candidates are headed to a runoff later this month. Joining me now from Sao Paulo is José Roberto de Toledo. He is a leading political columnist, and with me here in the studio in Washington is Mark Langevin. He is the director of Brazil Works, an advisory and consulting firm.
Hello.
Welcome, gentlemen, to both of you to the show. José, let me start with you. Were you surprised that Dilma Rousseff did not get the required number of votes to win outright?
Well, it was not what the polls said. It was almost certain that we're going to have a second run because since 1998 that we don't have a president elected in Brazil in the first run, the first election. So it was what we expected. What we didn't expect was that the second, the opposition candidate, Aécio Neves, reached the number of votes that he got. It was almost like a surprise.
Mark, the number of votes that Neves got, does that now make him a serious contender for president?
Oh, most definitely. I think one of the most interesting things about this very dynamic electoral process right now is the fact that there was a lot of, in a sense, voter migration from Marina to now the second place candidate, Aécio Neves. If that trend continues, then Neves would be potentially a favorite to win it in the first round. But it's obviously going to be a very, very close election.
José, what kind of numbers would Neves have to attract from the third place candidate, Marina Silva, to enable him to get over the top and win the election?
Well, Dilma needs at least 9 million votes more to get re-elected. And Marina, of course, is the third force, and all the votes, she had 22 million voters, people voting for her. She, of course, the third force in this race, and she will probably support Aécio Neves. But, you know, the electorate doesn't always follow what the leader says, so Dilma will need to get a third of Marina's votes, and she will try to do that without Marina's support. It's not an easy mission because all those who voted for Marina wanted to change, some kind of change in federal government. So Dilma will have probably the most difficult task that a Workers' Party candidate had since 1998.
Mark, how effective has Dilma Rousseff been on running on her record? I mean, has she given the voters enough reasons to re-elect her?
Well, she's been running on the record of the Workers' Party executive since 2003 with the very measurable eradication of extreme poverty, the income redistribution that has lessened the income inequality, the bouts of high growth that were experienced, including her 2010 7.5%. But obviously, Brazilians are a bit frustrated with the sluggish growth today. They're potentially frustrated with a little bit on the higher end of the inflation. So there's reasons for all to either support or oppose her candidacy in the second round. What I would be looking for, aside from the migration of Marina voters to either candidate, would also be the abstention rate. It came in at about an average of about 19%. But what we want to now detect in the polling is how many voters that voted for Marina will not cast a ballot, a valid ballot in the second round. This will also be a key factor with respect to the outcome.
And that will hurt Neves if they don't vote, right?
I think at this point, looking at the polling and so forth, that yes, that would favor the incumbent Dilma and probably hurt Neves. But if, as I said, if the migration continues as it did in the last week and a half, that obviously would favor Neves.
Okay. José, getting back to Dilma's record, especially on the economy, what kind of alternative policies would Aécio Neves bring to the table that would be attractive to voters?
Well, I don't think the economy, of course, is the key factor in any election, especially in Brazil. You can see that by how geographically the votes were casted. in the northeast region, in the north region of the country, which are the poorest regions, Dilma won by more than half of the votes. She would be reelected if the election was just there, because there the economy is growing much faster than in the rest of the country. So I think, of course, that's the main reason why voters go to one or the other side. And I think what Aécio is trying to bring to this election is the sense that if he is elected, you're gonna have a more stable economy, less inflation, maybe trying to regain traction. But it's a difficult decision for the voters, because the track record of the PSDB, the party of Aécio's party, is not so good in the last years that they were in government, in federal government in Brazil. So it's going to be the choice they are going to have, the voters are going to be, is like the worst or the even worst.
Mark, we've had a recession in Brazil. There have also been a lot of public anger over corruption scandal, especially in the run-up to the World Cup. Is that going to impact Rousseff in any way?
Well, I think it's going to play a role. I think the opposition obviously will deepen their criticism of the corporate governance of Petrobras and an attempt to associate her personally with some of the corruption scandals. Although I think that, quite honestly, I think the election does come down, as Jose mentioned, to people that want change and people that want a continuation of some of the progress that has already occurred. People see it differently. There's almost two Brazils now. There's one that has significantly benefited from the Worker Party administrations, Lula and now Rousseff. And then there are others, including in the state of São Paulo, where you have many more dynamic elements of the national economy, more internationalized exporters and so forth, that are looking at substantial reforms in taxation and other regulatory reforms that would assist some of these more dynamic firms export and get involved in the international economy. So almost two Brazils, two kind of different decisions. I think it will be a tight election, but maybe a scandal such as Petrobras might assist the opposition. But it could be a question of two glass houses as well. There are things on Neves' docket and his governance in Minas Gerais that also could be criticized. So I don't know how far that will go. I think ultimately it may come down to who might better administer the state to reboot the economy and get it growing again.
Right. Jose, Brazil is now the world's 7th largest economy. So how will the outcome of this election be looked at, firstly, by the rest of Latin America and then by the rest of the world?
Well, if Aécio wins the election, there will be certainly a change in the foreign policy in Brazil. Probably the alliances that Dilma has made and Lula has made, especially through the Mercosur, will be different. Probably they will look for a broader alliances. Venezuela will not have the same support. And so besides that, it's very difficult to predict how is going to, if anything is going to change, because I don't think Brazil has the same, the place that the Brazilian government think they have in the global scenario. The role that we play is not as preeminent as the government wanted to be. And I don't think this is going to change in the very near future. Doesn't matter who is the president.
All right, Mark, one final question. We've just got a very little time. 4 nationally televised elections coming up before the runoff. How important are they going to be?
No, I think they're very important.
National televised debates, rather.
Yeah, I think they're very important, especially for those undecided voters or voters of Marina who may be considering abstaining from the election. So a lot of the decisions will be based on the style of 2 candidates at the debates and what they're really emphasizing in terms of the particular change that Neves might conduct, and also look for suggestions by Rousseff about potential changes in her next administration if elected.
Okay, gentlemen, that's where we have to leave it. Thanks for joining us. And that is it for this edition of The Heat. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments, and story ideas to The Heat at cctv-america.com. And we'd like to continue the conversation on social media. Give us your thoughts and comments on our Facebook page. That's CCTV America. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.